As I did state in my last video, I said I would make a video on Justice, a mini-series created by Alex Ross, Jim Krueger, and Doug Braithwaite. It was meant to showcase the more innocent age of comics, the Silver Age, which Alex Ross is a huge fan of. However, it would have had a modern spin on it, taking place in the then present of the mid-2000s. What we got, as you can suspect from the title, is arguably the greatest Justice League story ever conceived. What makes this story so perfect, you may ask, though? Well, almost everything about it. Instead of featuring an alternate timeline or skewed versions of these characters, we get the tried and true characters we love, like the original 7 members of the Justice League, as well as smaller characters like Plastic Man, Metamorpho, the Phantom Stranger, and Zatanna. These are, I don't want to say basic interpretations of these characters, more like their characters in their truest form. Everything we know and love about these characters and the ideals they carry are in these versions. The best aspects of the characters of the Justice League are present here. The story is simple yet effective and is very brilliantly written. It's also no secret that Alex Ross is arguably the greatest comic book artist of all time, and his art in this book I would dare say is some of his best work. The images, characters, and settings just seem a bit more concrete and solid, as well as many stills feeling more epic and cinematic. Not saying his other works didn't, but here it spoke to me more and was more compelling. In, say, Kingdom Come, it was a bit more surreal in tone. Again, not saying that's a bad thing, I just feel like Justice is more apt for Ross's talents, as it was what he was most passionate about. I also love the lineup of the Legion of Doom, which I'll get to later, nailing a lot of well-known villains, but also them serving a greater purpose in the context of the story. Everyone has a role to play, and the twists and mystery of it all is very enthralling. I also love the world. While reading, you feel the complexities of the DC universe, or at least this version. While you know that not every single character in the universe is featured in this comic, you feel that broader world beyond the characters and settings they're showing. You see the many sides of this universe in one story, like the more cosmic side, or the magical side, or the earthly human side of it all. It all fits together so perfectly. I find it to be kind of ironic that the amount of shit DC is doing right now in terms of big, epic stories, they don't feel epic at all. They just feel tiresome and repetitive. However, here, you know this is a world that has some miles on it. These heroes have existed for a while, and you feel the things they went through before without outright saying it or even showing it. Plus, you have smaller known and niche heroes outside of the Justice League, as well as the Teen Titans who are also featured, like the Doom Patrol and the Metal Men. It's expanding this world more so than just the Justice League. It's not just the original 7, it's not just the additional B and C list heroes as well, but it has those not as popular characters that makes the world feel lived in even more so. Justice just has this perfect balance of epic and grounded. You feel the human emotions, what these characters are going through, but you also feel this broader story of everyone trying to figure it out. You feel the panic of it all, of all the heroes trying to figure the problem out and what to do about it. Speaking of, though, what is the story? Well, it involves the Legion of Doom, Lex Luthor, Bizarro, Black Manta, Brainiac, Captain Cold, Cheetah, Clayface, Giganta, Gorilla Grodd, Metallo, Parasite, Poison Ivy, the Riddler, Scarecrow, Sinestro, Solomon Grundy, and Toyman, as well as Black Adam a little bit later on, all getting the same dream of the end of the world where the entire Justice League dies and there are no survivors except Superman. They don't know the source of Armageddon, just knowing that it happens and the Justice League fails to prevent it. So they decide to band together and be better heroes than the Justice League ever would by curing diseases and ending world hunger. This eventually leads to conflict with the Justice League, who the Legion tries to get systematically executed, so they don't interfere. This is pretty much the basis for the story, and all of this happens within the first and second issues of a 12-issue series. Now, the things I love most about this story is that it's a perfect mix of Silver Age innocence and modern sensibilities. It does have the very simplistic and Ross-like designs of these characters, where they just look like they're wearing spandex with the occasional piece of armor like Wonder Woman or something like that. It also holds true to the silly stories of yesteryear, as well as those values of unbroken optimism, fighting the good fight, and being the pinnacle of good. However, it's mixed in with a modern spin, like bringing in the darker elements like death, violence, and questioning the beliefs of the heroes, which were themes not really brought up in those Silver Age stories. That's really where the greatness of all this lies, bringing in modern ideas to this somewhat Age of Innocence and doing it beautifully and exceptionally well. You have villains posing the greatest threat ever to the Justice League and to the heroes of this universe by being better heroes they could ever be. While maybe that's what the heroes want, is for their respective villains to be better, but at the end of the day, is that what they really want? The story questions whether or not if the Justice League is just there to keep a sort of status quo, another big part of not just the Silver Age, just of comics in general, and whether or not they're actually doing good, and if that good will help the future of Earth in some capacity. However, at the start of this story, the villains go out of their way to break that status quo and become better, because the world is ending, yes, but they also have this belief that people trust these heroes too much. Then when they fail, or they're gone, where are we? What do we do? The villains want to put faith back into humanity again by this shared apocalyptic vision, and the ongoing theme of the story is if that's a bad thing or not. However, it still has that tone and look of a silly Silver Age story, because the heroes still hold true to those values despite what the villains are doing, because despite everything, they are everything we could be and more. I think Justice is a perfect blend of two of my other favorite stories, also, ironically, Justice League stories, with those being Kingdom Come and The New Frontier. Both exemplary, and both have received so much praise that even I can't do those stories justice. Pun intended. Kingdom Come was a modern reaction to the more violent and extreme stories of the 1990s. We saw through this lens the worst both sides had to offer: Superman's forceful optimism or the violent legacy heroes. It was the brutal look of what was going on in the 90s and how we as a nation achieved almost a blissful-like peace pretty much, yet we tried so much to escape that bliss, shown more so in films like Fight Club, The Matrix, Office Space, and American Beauty, as well as plenty of others. Kingdom Come was the comic version of that. It showed the worst of humanity and what we had become despite being where we were at the time. No Cold War, no World War, nothing really terrible, just us. So we needed that more extreme outlook to escape. That's what Kingdom Come represented, the worst and the violent. Then you have The New Frontier, which is more of the hopeful outlook of the 1950s and the dawn of the Silver Age. There are still darker themes with the Golden Age heroes and what was going on for certain people in America at the time, but it was more so a broad lens of what we thought the nation was going to be, a blissful, hopeful future that mimicked the Silver Age stories very well, which is exemplified with the late Darwyn Cooke's amazing art. Justice combines those two very different outlooks and beliefs into one amazing story. Not necessarily those specific beliefs, but the idea of modern epics and violence, mixed with the blissful hopefulness of the Silver Age, and it does so amazingly well that I'm honestly surprised it's not talked about more. But the main reason I wanted to make this video, and why it was kind of a follow-up to my previous video, is that Justice should be the future of DC media, specifically the DCEU. This is the way that the DCEU should go if it wants to win over fans and introduce new ones to the world, not this hot topic, depressing, terribly adapted trash. As Troy Oboyo 17 said, we want the silliness, we want the spandex, we want the tights. However, we still need to balance it out because too much silliness could turn some people off by aesthetic alone. We need those more modern ideals and darker themes to elevate those stories. We need them to perfectly blend together, like Justice. Justice is pretty much everything a Justice League, hell, not even a Justice League, a DC story should be. Amazing characterizations, brilliant art, superb story, intriguing and darker themes, but they don't sacrifice the silliness of comic books and their stories. It is the right direction to go in with DC media. It's what I and many other people want to see in these stories. It's the stories we need right now.